I am Dr. Meenakshi Panchal, Assistant Professor, Pacific College of Social Science and Humanities, Paher University, Udaipur. Welcome to our today's speaker, Dr. Kritika Pancholi, ma'am, from this digital platform. Dr. Kritika Pancholi is an Assistant Professor, Narayana Business School, Ahmedabad, Gujarat. Many of your research paper, articles and book chapters have been published on various topics. Today, Madam will share her knowledge on the topic Indian knowledge system, social relevance, practical utility for contemporary society, in which you will tell us about the concept of Indian knowledge system, its core components, ethical framework and many other points related to this topic. Once again, I welcome Dr. Pancholi Madam. Now you please share your views, your thoughts on this topic with us.
The most intriguing topic of and about Indian knowledge system. The much has been spoken about Indian knowledge system, but today I want to share with you my views on the social relevance and practical utility of the Indian knowledge system for the contemporary society. So, when we are talking about Indian knowledge system, what do we know about Indian knowledge system? Is it just limited to the history, the myths, or the mythology as it has been said over the years in our education system? Yeah, can we say that it has been the concept, the perception which has been made over the years with the advent of or the introduction of Macaulay's education system, wherein he believed to rule the Indian brains, Bharatiya brains, uh, by English linguistics, by narrowing down the subjects, by changing the mindset of the people and focusing on certain aspects of life rather than the overall, or I can say holistic development. So, when we're talking about IKS, it represents the comprehensive knowledge. It has evolved over the 1,000 years. It is not only limited to one subject, one specific stream or discipline, but it relates to the interdisciplinary perspective or multidisciplinary perspective, which is already mentioned in our ancient scriptures, like Vedas, Upanishads. And if we are talking about Vedas and Upanishads, how old are they? They have been thousands of years old. But their studies, their education, their knowledge, their philosophy, everything can be used anytime, every time, in any class. So when we are talking about Indian knowledge system, the importance is recently the government has also implemented the NEP 2020, and we have been currently being revitalizing our knowledge, because what it has been observed over a period of time, that the last 200 years the mindsets of the people, the individuals, the human beings were very limited, and hence it restricted the overall growth of individual as a whole. Coming to the core components of IKS, when we are talking about Indian knowledge system, the most important aspect of the entire Indian knowledge system or ancient wisdom is the philosophical schools. जैसे कि Vedant, Nyaya, Sankhya, they had believed in shaping the epistemology and ethical behavior among the individuals. When we're talking about the components, the IKS or ancient wisdom just did not believe in the rote learning or specific theoretical learning, but it also believed in overall learning through different practical implications and in terms of anything and everything. Whether we take health sciences, this may Ayurveda was used for the holistic medicine, or if we are taking about the mental and physical well-being, yoga, which is also one of the important aspects. Mathematics and astronomy were booming at that point of time. How can we forget Aryabhatta's zero concept, or we can't forget the concept of pi, or Panini's Sanskrit language grammar, which is still used in AI and other languages. When we're talking about environmental practices, we believed in traditional agriculture, water management systems, step wells. When we're talking about Indus Valley civilization, it had all mentioned a developed perspective over the mankind, and not to leave the art and architecture. In a way, we can say that methodological features, systematic exposition, everything was included and was a part of the IKS. So, if we see the historical evolution, IK has documented history spanning over 3,000 or more than 3,000, I can say. Because when we are talking about Rig Veda, it has been lakhs of years back. And when we are talking about Vedas and Upanishads, we can still remember, agar aaj ke zamane mein research scholars like Rupa Bhati, or if we are saying other scholars who have tried to decode the timelines of Ramayana and Mahabharata, it was over more than 11,000 or 12,000, 14,000 years approximately. तो उस केस में अगर देखा जाए तो they used to do the studies of Veda. So you can imagine how old the Vedas would have been, right? And when we are talking about the Guru Shishya Parampara, which ensured quality control and authentic transmission, अगर हम बात करते हैं colonial era की, तो the educational shifted had disrupted the traditional culture and roots. Post independence, if we see, the it has been gradual marginalization in formal education. And when we had talked about formal education, it was related to or restricted to speaking English, thinking English, and just studying for seeking jobs, as we can say, but not more than that. However, we are trying to revive the entire education system thanks to the our Ministry of Education and the people who have been involved in reforming the policies, because it is important now that education system should take a turn and we should get back to know our roots. Because as we can see, अगर आप किसी plant को अगर खींचते हो, तो what happens, it gets detached from its roots. When once it gets detached to its roots, what happens, it is nothing but it just dies. And the same thing has been happening with all of us. We have been dying because we could not afford to get to know our roots. जब हम बात करते हैं विकसित भारत 2047 की, it is much required. Why? Because now India or Bharat has been stepping towards the development, the developed country. We are talking about soft culture. We are talking about the power, empowerment which we have. If we are taking about any field, whether it is defense, whether it is diplomacy, whether it is political, sorry, political immersion, we see that we have been transforming. Our leaders have been the insight with which we have been seeing everything has been changing. So, how is it socially relevant? It has been transforming education. कैसे हो रहा है ये सब? NEP 2020 has been introduced. IKS as a subject has been introduced at all the levels of our education system. State-wise adoption of higher success in literacy, which states have been shown. Data also shows that most many colleges and universities have established IKS centers for research, and even digital learning and platforms are preparing the modules which are related to IKS accessibility to the wider audience. And there is a has been an emphasis on multilingual education and local knowledge systems. Why? Because we want people to know themselves. We believe in holistic development. अगर हम बात करते हैं सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट की, टुडे द SDG goals are being introduced and UN is emphasizing that sustainability should be there, but that was always there from the way back in the history when we are talking about the even Indus Valley civilization, जब लोग वाटर बॉडीज वाटर मैनेजमेंट करना जानते थे. सस्टेनेबिलिटी की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द सोसाइटल इम्पैक्ट की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो इक्विटेबल सोशल वेलफेयर, ये सारी चीजें आ जाती हैं. सो इसके अंदर में वाटर मैनेजमेंट, रिसोर्स एफिशिएंसी, बायोडाइवर्सिटी, climate adaptation, everything which now we are focusing on had been a part of our ancient wisdom, or we can say ancient philosophy. And that is the reason why we need to reconfirm, reaffirm, and start studying about them. IKS is not only going to help us understand the nature at its best or understand ourselves at its best, but it will also helps to provide an ethical framework. IK's philosophy is based on dharma, which is righteousness. It believes in moral decision making, which has been a part and has been insisted by many social aspects when we are talking about corporate governance and everything. When we are talking about ahimsa, non-violence, it means conflict resolution, environmental ethics, and business practices. Again, ethical frameworks consist of satya. Satya means truthfulness. Foundation of any business, any discussion, anything is transparency, trust, and integrity, which needs to be imbibed now in the society. Looking at the way we are going forward in the society. अगर देखा जाए तो हम पतन की तरफ जा रहे हैं since it's a कलयुग. But then we need to understand that how can these things help us to become better people, better person, and as a part of society, better society. We have also the philosophy also talks about parigraha, which is non-possessiveness. You should not be so much selfish about everything. You should promote sustainable consumption. You should think about others before thinking about yourself. And same goes with seva or selflessness. So that's why earlier those successful kings, जो भी राजा होते थे, they used to be selfless, and that's the reason why they had ruled for so many years. Uh, Modern application, mein, as I already mentioned you, when we're talking about, we don't want that there should be uh, uh, the modern management or modern education system should be forgotten or abandoned completely. What we want is that same philosophy should be followed here so that there should be a good learning and we as an individual, as a part of society, grow up giving good to the nature. इसका impact क्या होगा? So impact here is that when we are talking about health, then Ayurveda and Patanjali Yoga are there, and it is not important that it is not the thing that these things have been introduced lately. But the problem is that they were not confirmed and appreciated and being no, adapted by Bharti. Rather than when yoga went outside India, got famous, now everybody is trying to do yoga. But before that, yoga was not given that much of importance. The same way when we are talking about SDGs, tribal livelihood, indigenous tourism, these are the aspects which needs to be taken into consideration when linking traditional practices to SDGs. So here the social community-based knowledge is important. Mental health is important. Now we can see the current generation gets anxiety, stress so easily. Why? Because they are not focusing on their own development. They are not focusing on the knowledge which we have been carrying for with our ancestral knowledge, with the stories they had carried on, with the so-called mythology, which is actually not a myth, but they were the real incidents which had already occurred in the past. When we're talking about case studies of IKS, you can see so many case studies. For example, corporate adoption, like companies are integrating IKS ethics in CSR. Agriculture revival is there. Water conservation is there among the communities. Now people are talking about more sustainable or non-renewable sources of energy. Renewable sources of energy, wherein we are focusing on retaining the nature. We are more focused towards keeping a balance between the nature and the unnatural things or the scientific, the technological advancement. So, what is the challenge and barrier? The challenges are that colonial legacy has actually marginalized us from our own traditional knowledge, which was far more advanced than what we are learning now. And believe me or not, the ancestors were very, very intellectual people who had found out so many foundations, taking from math to Sanskrit or linguistics or art, anything you take. So capacity constraints have been made, which needs to be now overtaken because there has been uneven state of resources which is limiting the equity able IKS adoption. It is important that the teachers who are the gurus in the society need to take over, and they need to be trained rigorously, which has already been taken place and it is in process. But this is what is needed when we're talking about standardization issue. That it is important that there should be a balanced preservation of traditional knowledge with modern validation. So we are not saying we should forget about modern management systems or the theories, but we could relate it to our own Indian philosophy, and we can go further. We can contribute towards the knowledge. Also, protection of traditional knowledge holders' rights while enabling wider use. And it is also important that it has to be a rigorous research for demonstrating effective of ICAS interventions. So, what is the future potential of 21st century of ICAS here? So, it is important that the policy, supportive policy should be introduced. It should be integrated with the curricula. It is important now that people should more focus on community partnerships, wherein we are talking about participatory research in local livelihoods to the SDGs. Technology integration, digital platform for documentation, dissemination, and learning should be there. Transdisciplinary approach should be there, and it should be promoted rather, I would say. And global collaboration is much important because the more we work with the international people, it would be better for us. Now, what are the key domains in which modern application, the IKS could be implemented? So we can say health, wherein Ayurveda is there, yoga is there, Vedic mathematics is there, traditional architecture is there, performing arts is there, environmental sciences is there. So now, if you're talking about IKS in the global context, it is like the philosophy of IKS has already been merging with or in line with the UNESCO's recognition of indigenous knowledge. So it not only offers the alternatives to the Western centric development, but it also provides a value addition to what our own culture carries. When we're talking about the cultural aspect, it provides appropriate solution to the diverse communities, specifically when we're talking about the communities in India or Bharat. It also contributes to global disclosure on decolonizing knowledge and education. And India's IKS revival inspires similar movements in other nations with rich traditional knowledge. So, how can we implement, or what are the pathways of implementation of IKS? From where should we start? कहाँ से start करना चाहिए? Okay, it is important that dedicated IK centers, researchers, and academic programs should be there. It is important that fundings for the IKS related uh, activities or based projects should be there. Capacity building should be there. Master training programs should be considered. Documentation, systematic recording of oral traditions, practices, and knowledge systems should be there. Uh, it is important to have public awareness. Now I know that since I have been into the IKS, I have been associated with many people who have all done a great job, great work in this field of research, wherein they are trying to give or provide the information which has been lost almost, which we have all missed out while studying. But now it is time that we should give the next generation the gift of the culture from where they come. And it is also important equally that there should be a policy alignment. So I guess not only offers time-tested wisdom, but it is also providing relevant contemporary challenges. So it is important that I guess as a philosophy should be adopted by individual. It is not only going to give you overall development in case of physical, mental, spiritual, but it is also going to give you a life which is meant, which is meaningful. So, and also the success depends on policy support, institutional commitment, and community participation. No doubt, the government, the stakeholders, everybody is working, but still, we have to go miles. As Professor V. Mahadevan had said once, who is from IIT, and he has done a great job in Indian knowledge system. He said that I'm sure that what has been forgotten is going to change. It is difficult to change the mindset. We have been minds have been programmed in such a way that we are more inclined towards the education system which was introduced by Macaulay. However, I would like to reiterate and request everybody that whatever minimum we could do for I guess it would be a great effort from our end, which we are going to give to our future generations. So IKS complements modern systems rather than replacing them. And future potential is that it is not only going to create sustainability, equitability, but also culturally root the development pathways. So that was all from my end. So I would request if you have any queries, we can go ahead with that. Thank you so much, everyone.